The clock ticked. 6:23, each second a tiny death. Samuel watched the hand jerk forward, a black insect on the pale face of time. It cared nothing for his grief, nothing for the empty space beside him, just another second devoured by the night. He was adrift in the silence of his apartment. The air hung heavy, thick with the ghosts of laughter, of whispered secrets. They clung to the dust motes dancing in the dim lamplight. He was drowning in memories, each tick of the clock pulling him further under. Time, he thought, was a merciless gravedigger. It buried the past without ceremony, leaving only faint, crumbling headstones in the mind. He clung to those headstones, tracing the names etched there with a trembling finger. Her name, their laughter, the warmth of her hand in his. The present was a barren landscape, empty. The clock mocked him with its steady rhythm, a constant reminder that time marched on, indifferent to his pain. Each tick was a hammer blow, driving him further into the desolate wasteland of his solitude. 6:43. The shadows from the lamp stretched long fingers across the room. He saw them as phantom limbs reaching for him, for the space where she used to be. She had hated the dark, always needed a light on. He closed his eyes, and her face shimmered behind his eyelids. Her smile, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she laughed. A phantom warmth spread through him, the ghost of her touch, but it faded with the next tick of the clock, leaving only the cold echo of absence. 6:50. The clock's voice seemed to grow louder. Each tick was a word, whispering her name in the darkness. He pictured her sitting in that armchair, her book in her lap, her brow furrowed in concentration. He used to tease her about that furrow, how it made her look fierce, even when she was reading something silly. Now he'd give anything to see that furrow again, to hear her scold him for interrupting her. But the armchair sat empty, shrouded in the gloom, a monument to his loss. A strange calm settled over him. He realized the ticking of the clock hadn't changed. It was he who had. He was becoming accustomed to the rhythm of his solitude, the steady beat of his own heart in the silence. He looked around the apartment, really saw it for the first time since she was gone. It was just a room, filled with objects. It was the memories he carried within him that gave the space meaning. And those memories, he realized, would always be with him, even if the physical reminders were gone. 9:23. The apartment was no longer a hostile entity. It was a sanctuary. He sat in the quiet, the rhythmic ticking of the clock no longer a torment but a lullaby. He was learning to be alone, to find solace in the quiet spaces between memories. The city outside hummed with distant life. He imagined the countless stories unfolding beyond his window, each a testament to the relentless flow of time. And he knew that his own story, though forever altered, would continue as well. 10 o'clock. The clock announced the hour with a resonant chime. He didn't flinch. He simply listened, accepting the sound as part of the symphony of the night. Time had lost its sharp edges. It flowed around him now, a steady current rather than a raging torrent. He knew there would be moments when the grief would return, sharp and sudden. But he also knew he had weathered the initial storm. He had learned that time, while a relentless force, could also be a healer. It softened the edges of pain, allowing space for acceptance to grow. He rose and walked to the window. The city lights twinkled below, a million tiny sparks against the velvet darkness. He breathed deeply, the cool night air filling his lungs. He was alone, yes, but he was also alive. The silence in the apartment was no longer oppressive. It was his own. He could fill it with music, with books, with the quiet contemplation of passing time. Or he could let it be a canvas for the echoes of memory, a space for healing and acceptance. He turned from the window, a sense of quiet peace settling over him. Time might be a cemetery, but it was also a garden. He carried the headstones of his past within him, but he also carried the seeds of his future. And he knew with a certainty that surprised him, that even in the face of loss, even in the relentless march of time, there was still beauty to be found. He would find it, he knew, in the quiet moments, in the space between the ticks of the clock, in the cemetery of his own heart, where time held no sway.